Alright guys, we are back talking about some more Wheel of Time, and today we are going to be talking about episode 3. This one was definitely a little bit above episode 2, a little bit below episode 1, but it was still all in all a great episode, and I think it added a whole new element to the show and stuff like that, and the story that we definitely do need early on, and I think it fits perfectly. But before we get into the episode, guys, be sure to like and subscribe. Comment below what you liked about this episode or what you didn't like about this episode, and I would love to discuss it with you guys. I love talking about Wheel of Time with you. Now let's get into this video. The cold opens have been perfect from the start, man. Like, they have been great. I love that we get to see Nynaeve's like awesomeness. Basically, we see her being dragged by a Trolloc. It's kind of crazy that she is being just dragged by a Trolloc by her braid. It's like, wow, okay, that's a lot. And the Trolloc drops her, and then he finds a weaker Trolloc and just guts him and starts eating them. It's like, holy crap, these things are monstrous. They are terrible beasts. So it's really cool to see that. And she gets away. She ends up going to the sort of like ceremony pond or whatever that Egwene goes in. Wait, do we ever see Egwene in it? She goes into the ceremony pond, which we've seen in the trailers that Egwene is in and has all these colors and stuff like that, but we don't see that in the show. I don't think we haven't seen that so far, so that's really interesting. But we see her there, and she's hiding from the Trolloc, and then she gets out, stabs the Trolloc, and then the blood goes into the Fang or the Aes Sedai ancient symbol, and then she comes out of it. I love this sort of back and forth with her and Lan about Moraine and all of that, and Lan is trying to like calm her down and stuff like that, and getting closer and closer, and then she actually tries to kill him, and then he's just like disarms her, knocks her out. I'm like, that's awesome. Just like straight up just knocks her out. But it's really interesting with their chemistry here. I'm very interested in how later in the show it's going to keep developing, and I'm excited to see where they're going to go with it. We then pick up with Perrin and Egwene, who are running away from the wolves, which I think is a great touch. My only criticism about this episode is that they just like keep running away. Like, there's like one too many scenes of the wolves. Like, I think at the point where they found the tracks, they should have found the Tinkers. Like, that should have been it. But and then they keep going and they keep going. I think they definitely should have had that scene where Egwene was like, it's not your fault, Perrin, it's all okay, and then she like comforts him, and then they go off and whatever. But if we could have like combined that scene with them then finding the Tinkers, well, that scene is when they find the Tinkers shortly after that. I think if we just skip the tracks scene and then maybe like tone down the wolves running away a little bit, then it would have been almost like, I think it would have been on par with episode 1 or maybe a little bit better, just on like the conflict that's sort of happening with characters. Anyway, so that's my only criticism for their sort of storyline. I love seeing the Tinkers. It was really cool. They had all this mismatched sort of stuff. It was definitely a cool lore thing, and seeing the world open up a little bit more about the Tinkers and stuff like that, and their greeting and how they have a different culture. And it was great to have a younger person talk to them and be like, hey, this is like how you do that. Like, here, just say it. And then they're like, okay. And then they like say the greeting words and they accept him in. I think that was a great touch. If he becomes someone who's supposed to be more, that would be really cool, because in the books they had the wolf brother who was actually supposed to help them. I don't think that's a spoiler or not, but they had the wolf brother, but instead they have this guy that's like their age and helps them get in with them, and he's a Tinker as well. So I love that sort of touch to their storyline. I also just love any scenes with Egwene and Perrin, because both of them are my like #1 favorite characters, and I love their friendship sort of at the beginning, where it's really wholesome, and all they have is each other after losing their friends, and they're sort of confiding in each other, and it's really great. I hope they just don't go the route of like, this could be a potential like love interest. Not even that, but like there could be some tension here between us, because I love like it just being their friendship. I love them just being friends, and I hope they don't go anywhere else with that, because yeah, that's just a crucial part of the first book that I loved about them, is they only had each other and they were friends and all of that. So I hope they keep that, they don't go any further with that. But yeah, I loved it all in all. Also, it's very interesting with sort of Perrin's like dream world, or the wolf dream we can call it, and the wolf is like eating his wife's like innards after she got like chopped up by Perrin, and then we see a really cool shot of a Shamael, which I thought was very well done, and I hope it could become something more, something I talked about in my episode 2 sort of breakdown. But yeah, I thought it was really cool, really well done. I was hoping this was, I'm thinking this is like the wolf dream. I'm thinking this is like, but I'm trying to understand the context of it. So we have this theory going around that she is a dark friend, and if this is a wolf dream and it's a wolf trying to tell him that she was bad, then like this will make a lot of sense to that theory, right? And that would be really cool. So I don't think this is Ishamael's sort of like bringing him in here. I think this is the wolf bringing him. I think this is the wolf bringing Perrin in here, and then Ishamael's trying to get in and like mess with it, but that's why he isn't all that too much present. I don't know. That's just my thing, and I believe that she is a dark friend and that wolf was eating her insides, telling Perrin that she was bad. So I believe this was a wolf dream and the wolves were trying to show him something. So that just continues on to my theory there. But yeah, I am really liking the sort of jump scare-ish of Ishamael, but I'm wanting more. So I'm hoping that they will do more coming on to the second half of the season. Isn't that like super weird? Like after Thanksgiving, we're gonna be halfway through the season. I'm not ready like to stop talking about it. Like I'm gonna be talking about this for a minute. But man, that's super weird. Next we kind of go to more of Rand and Matt's storyline, which I think is the strongest of the three, and they get through some cool like banter back and forth, which I think is great for their characters. And I love the line of "that's just not how roads work," and then I love Rand coming back at him and be like, imagine like people talking about you as a hero when you were just like a little bit chilly. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like, it's really fun back and forth friend banter. And then they eventually come onto this like mining town that's sort of run down, and I think it's the next perfect step to go in an adaptation when it comes to changes. It's probably my favorite change. I was very hesitant because a lot of this episode was like, we're not in the books, and like we're barely in the books, and I was getting really worried. But on my second rewatch, I was like, oh yeah, this is a great next step. So they get to this inn. They have this innkeeper, and she's really cool. She's really fun, and she just has this like on the same sort of level with them when it comes to wit and banter and all of that. And we get to see Tom, which is just great. I love seeing Tom, and they change his character a lot, so he's not this like acrobatic fun like bouncing off the walls sort of person. He's very dramatic, and he's dramatic in the books, but he takes up that more gruff sort of feel, and then he's just like really loose with life, if that makes sense. So he gives his performance, it's really good, and he goes over to Rand and Matt, and he's just like a donation for the Gleeman. Also, they added the patches inside the cloak, which I think was perfect. I was like afraid they weren't going to do the patches, but they did. It was awesome. They go through this, and they basically don't have enough to give him a donation, and he ends up swiping Matt's purse from a purse snatcher, and it's a whole thing, and he doesn't give him the money back, and he's just like laughing through it. I feel like Tom ultimately did have this plan to give it back to him, so I thought it was really interesting because Tom knew since the beginning that they were from the Two Rivers and probably needed to watch after them. So after that, they asked the innkeeper of what they need to do to be able to stay there, and she's like their age basically, and she like gives them a few things. Rand's out there chopping some wood, and he's like, we can alternate talking to Matt, and then Matt starts to have the effects of the dagger. I think my only criticism with this is I think they should have had at least like one scene where Matt is like fiddling with the dagger, like sort of like Lord of the Rings with the One Ring. I think if they added that, it would have made a little bit more sense to audiences, but I think people are like, why is Matt acting like such a prick? Like, it might just be because he's like his dad, right? Because that's what's supposed to happen. And maybe that's why they set it up the way they did, but it's the dagger that's making him go that way. I hope that's not like a spoiler. Anyway, so yeah, it's very interesting. They run into a conflict, and then Rand starts getting closer to this innkeeper. We cut over to Matt and Tom, who are looking at the Aiel that's like up in the cage and stuff like that. So that's really cool. We're learning about the Aiel a little bit more, and Tom brings up the thing is like, yeah, you won't find that sort of hair like past the threefold lance or the Aiel waist, and it's the hair looks exactly like his best friend. So I didn't know why Matt at that point didn't go, oh, that's kind of weird. And I hope the audience like would have been like that too. Like, I hope this is not a spoiler. But they're like, oh, my friend the ginger has the same sort of hair. Like, okay, that's kind of weird. Like, you know, anyway, but yeah, that's like really blatant and in your face. I think audiences did catch on to that, but Matt, his best friend, didn't catch on to that. Anyway, Matt ends up swiping this thing from the Aiel, and they bury him, and Matt actually swipes the purse from Tom, and then Tom's just like, yep, good job, kid, like, whatever, be careful out there. And I just love it. Tom is still teaching them lessons, but it's not the lessons for children, it's the lessons for men, because they're not like these innocent kids, like, or viewed as these innocent people. They're more jaded to the world, and they can kind of handle themselves, and Tom's just giving them real life lessons. Anyway, we go back to to Rand and the other girl, and they're sort of getting really close, and she ends up being a dark friend. And the really cool line where she's like, my braid, I probably shouldn't have braided it, it doesn't look like hers or whatever. And then he's like, what? And then she's like, Egwene's. And then it's like, what the heck is going on? And then we find out she put them in that room to like lock them in basically, and she's called a Fade over, and she's like, not even 3 men can break down this door. And he just burst it down. So we're like, okay, Rand just used a power to be able to knock down that door, because it was like a steel door that not even 3 men can knock down. But she has the Heron Mark blade, and he's running away, and Matt meets up with him, and he's like, run, and Matt's like, huh? And then she's like running with the sword, and they're just both running off. It's perfect. And I think this is the best part of the show so far. So she ends up catching up to them, and traps them, and she's like, the Dark One wants to end all of this. I actually hoped that she would have used the term the Great Lord, because that's what the Dark Friends don't call themselves. They're not dark. They don't view themselves as dark. It's the Great Lord. They talk about him as the Great Lord, and I don't think she used that. Someone correct me if she didn't, but it would have made sense. Only the Forsaken I know really use that. Maybe well, let me not get into any spoilers, but yeah, that would have been cool to see that she's like, we don't think of him as the Dark Lord. We see him as someone who's going to end suffering, who's going to end this cycle, who's going to break the wheel, and there will be no more pain anymore. Like, we just don't want to have pain anymore. I've been stuck in this small town for all my life, and she sets up that conflict pretty early on, and she's just like, I'm tired of this cycle, I'm tired of the suffering, I'm tired of the pain. He wants to break the wheel, and they're just like, you are deluded, lady. Like, that is not like what he is trying to do. That might be what he preaches, but not exactly what his ultimate goal is. It is to break the wheel, but a lot of bad things are going to come with that. And so she's like, I don't want to kill you, I want you to come with us. And then she's like, I called a Fade, like, he's coming. And then out of nowhere, THOM, like, you just see a dagger go right through her neck, and she just drops dead on the ground. And THOM's like, did you hear? She was a dark friend. Like, you gotta murk these people. Like, they cannot live. They're gonna make some bad things happen in the world. So like, he like didn't care. Like, he's seen some stuff in his life, and I thought this was perfect. And they have never killed anybody before. Rand and Matt have never killed anyone, and THOM is just like, he's here to teach them the lessons. So now they have this decision to go east, and that's towards like the White Tower area. And he's like, I can protect you guys. The Fade's coming, all that sort of stuff. So they end up probably going off with him, which I thought was just awesome. It was the best of sort of the scenes in the show, until this last one where we get Lan, Moraine, and Nynaeve. They get to like sort of the Aes Sedai scouting people, and they actually have someone who proclaimed themselves as the Dragon Reborn, and it's a guy, and he's sitting in the cage, and he's looking up at them, and he's looking really menacing. And I don't know if they said he was Logain or not. That is Logain, and I thought it was a really, really awesome scene, and it's going to set up an awesome episode 4. Obviously, I have some high praise for this episode. I really, really liked it. Not as much as episode 1, but and a little bit more than episode 2. So my rating for this one is a 7.8. That's what I gave it. I thought it was really solid, really good. Looking back on it now, maybe episode 2 is more like a 7.7. So I have like 7.9, 7.7, 7.8. But no, I'm gonna keep my scores the way they are. I really like this episode, and I think episode 4 will probably be my like 8 episode. So like 8 point something. I really think that it can get there, because Logain stuff is probably going to be awesome storytelling. I'm hoping great pacing, because I'm excited to see where THOM and Rand and Matt go, and Perrin and Egwene, and seeing all the awesome stuff with Logain. I think this could be like an 8 point something episode, so I'm super excited about that, but I'll cover that in the next episode, guys. Be sure to comment below what your favorite part of this episode was, or maybe something you didn't like. I would love to hear from you guys. Be sure to like and subscribe. It helps me out a ton, guys, and I will see you in the next video.